Welcome to Kyle and Cody's Cult CinemaCast, also Poly Sci-Fi. This is kind of like a main feed thing. We're doing a little bit of a special episode, very special episode. No, not like that. It's a public service announcement that you need to buy my upcoming novel. My actually coming out, which is going to be out as of day of recording here. The Pennsylvanian by Kyle Brokenshire. It's a neo pulp vampire action horror novel. It's I can't even. It's always hard describing your book because it's like, oh, I don't want to oversell it. I don't want to undersell it. I just want to tell her it's really good. I worked hard on it. Try it. It's out now. Ebook and paperback. I think on the major platforms. I've been tossing out the. I think Indigo link is like the place to buy it, but it's coming out. It's out today on August 24th, 2025. If you're if you think the idea of a little action story that's like Dracula by way of John Wick, you might like this. If that sounds intriguing to you, check it out. It's gonna be one of my it's my first novel that I've put out for public consumption. So yeah, really excited about that. And we're gonna just celebrate that by
Uh,
talking a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I don't really exactly know how you can hard sell people to like at least like even give you a shot. Like hopefully that gets better with time.
Yeah, no, I'm shooting out some. I think Dracula by way of John Wick is a pretty good sell. Obviously, plot's different.
Yeah, no, that was
He's not going to
good.
spend 4 movies avenging a dog. It's the plot's different. It's just sort of like an action thing. Um, and I guess yeah, no, he's not. He doesn't spend 4 books avenging a dog. And I think at one point playing Yu-Gi-Oh or something to decide how to do like a duel. I think that happens in one of the more recent ones. I have no idea what's up with that. I've only seen like half of the first one actually. First one seems really good. Don't seem at all interested in any of the sequels.
Done done way better than that. I think I was on the third or the fourth when I kind of hung it up, but
Yeah,
uh
nah, it seems like a bit of a meme now.
yeah.
Um, I could also say Helsing a bit more, but a bit more grounded.
Yeah, I guess my starting point for like vampires is like very early 2000s, I guess. So
Hmm.
I hate to admit it, like Blade.
Yep.
There I think there was the 2006, I want to say, Van Helsing movie starring, I think, Hugh Jackman, if I'm
Yep.
2004. Hugh Jackman, Van Helsing movie, and Blade in the early 2000s, and then eventually we started bastardizing, I guess, the vampire genre, and I read every single Twilight book because I was a teenager in the early fucking
Were you
2000s, and
trying to impress a girl? What are you doing with that?
uh uh sure, we'll go with that. Yeah, yeah, and I don't think I've ever read like the original like Dracula, or even like fully understand like the weird connotations between like some of the older like vampire lore. So I think that actually kind of draws me into like the first question I wrote here, that's like, what do you think draws people into the mythos of vampires, and how do you think it has changed since like the very early prototypes of vampires, such as like Vlad the Impaler or Dracula?
Uh, okay.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I do want to apologize to the Twilight fans. I don't particularly care for your novels, but if you want let's just say if you buy like 1,000,000 copies of my book, I will do everything in the power to make like Robert Pattinson take his shirt off on screen. If you can get like a, if you can make like a bunch of millions of dollars and like make this into a big hit and get me like a movie deal, I will fight for the right to cast Robert Pattinson in a very particular role in the novel. Cody, I don't know how if he's read it. I don't know if he remembers this bit, but there's a very particular part in the novel that he's a character that I imagine being played by Robert Pattinson, and he does a little striptease if that's something you can want. So yeah, if that's something you want in the universe, you just need to buy millions of like a couple 100,000 copies of my book. Get me that movie deal.
I think
We'll talk to Pattinson's agent, and we'll make that happen for you. And the sooner the better, because eventually he's going to get old, and he won't. And if he gets old enough, he won't be able to do that. So really, it's in your best interest as a Twilight fan to support my novel.
yeah,
Anyway,
I think ultimately, like I think Patterson really needs to give back to the like vampire genre in total. Like I don't think he should leave uh his mark on the vampire like genre specifically with Twilight. Like he should be
yeah,
working everything in his power to kind of like change that image of vampires for like the better because
yeah. By playing a
yeah, I don't know what to
stripper
tell
in the
you.
movie adaptation of The Pennsylvanian by Kyle Brokenshire. This is the, I mean, we'll give you a producer president, Rob. Executive producer. How's that sound? Sorry, if I make it, I don't want to. It's only a small portion of the book. If that's not something you want, still buy my book anyway. But I'm manipulating the Twilight fans. I think that's in the best interest of everybody.
I think the Twilight fans are very easily manipulated at this point in time because we're all in our 30s and we kind of like want to erase that from our memories at this point in time. So
Anyway, on to your original question, and we'll see how much of that tangent I keep. 'Cause I don't know. That's either a bit that sells the
yeah, fair
book,
enough.
that you can like have a scene where you imagine Robert Pattinson in a strip club doing stripper things. That's a scene you can imagine in the book. Obviously, all characters contained within are any coincidental similarities between characters within the book and those portrayed in the and those in real life are purely coincidental. You are, however, allowed to put whatever actor you want in any character you want to play, any character. So you can just imagine uh, Robert Pattinson playing the male stripper who appears in chapter 2 or 3. I'm forgetting slightly. It's begun where I'm now outside of the book. I can't remember everything about it. Anyway, on to your original question because I've been I'm only dragging on about this because I think it'll sell it for a particular crowd. Anyway, what do I think of the evolution of vampires? Vampires are one of these things that speak to a few, like all horror stories, honestly, draw against some primal fears, real or imagined, uh, between like that sit in the back of our minds, and they're like this abstraction of things we fear in our real life. Like like an example, just like the dragon. It's like this fanciful creature, but the idea of something that's like hideously powerful that's going to like break into your castle and steal your princess is like a real thing, and you're kind of abstracting it to something fantastical. So it's a story that can be better related to, and perhaps what's the word I'm looking for, help someone process a particular idea. For vampires, I think it's been a lot of other things. I think it's sometimes difficult to figure out what the original basis for it. Like, there's maybe a lot of the original legends are associated with like spreading plague, and they're like this representation of death. And obviously, the the appearance of a vampire is largely drawn from like they'd dig up these recently dead corpses, and the flesh around them, the body's flesh would, as it begins to dry, would cause more hair follicles and like fingernails and stuff to be exposed, and that would convince people that like the body was still growing after death, so they'd do things to the body, desecrate the corpse in order to prevent the body from rising again. um and if the thing doesn't react while you're doing that, just means you pick the right time to do it. um doesn't mean that necessarily uh it never happened, but yeah, like all horror draws from like these primal interpretations of fears we have. Some of that has been the plague as portrayed in things like Nosferatu very much does draw into this idea of like the vampire is like a plague, and that can be like a metaphorical thing where like their presence in the setting causes a physical sickness upon the land. As we get into like the more popular stuff in the modern era, you get Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it's sort of Dracula himself is like drawn from this idea of a perhaps problematic idea where there'd be these rich foreigners coming in to move into England from overseas, and stealing the women away. And like I think almost any monster story, there are these problematic interpretations of it. I i mean, the problem with that is like sometimes you use these things to attack people or like draw fear against people that don't deserve it or necessarily deserve it, or like taking examples like I just said of like a foreign rich guy who moves into the country and is improper with the local women. That's not like a what's the word I'm looking for? That's not like an actual, that doesn't mean anything toward like the other people that would share that culture with that person. But some people of you will use that as like an excuse, like because that's where a lot of prejudice comes from. It's associating uh like bad things that have happened committed by certain individuals with like larger groups, and causing these problems. And the difference between, and obviously we move on to that, and like a lot of more modern interpretations are driven of like the vampires are like representation of the rich, being a bunch of blood-sucking parasites who draw power and wealth from like extracting it from vulnerable people. Um, Often, as it happens, young women usually. Although it can also be that some people have used it on. I think in the original Dracula novel, Dracula is seen feeding on men, but that sort of thing was excised from the original movies because people have associated the act of blood sucking with sexual assault, and you can't have man on man sexual assault in the movie, so that was expunged from at least those earlier versions of when Dracula comes to film for the first time. I I mean these are I mean a lot of these things are valid and understandable. I think, and this is something I thought a lot about because the Pennsylvanian is a story about this villainous vampire, And when I was conceiving of the idea, I kind of wanted to do for vampires what the Wolfman movie does for werewolves, where like the horror of it is that you've been infected with this curse, and it turns, and the horror of it is that you get turned into this monster that's going to hurt people that you otherwise would have believed is like your fellow man. Yeah, and that does sort of ring true to like the original one of the original inspirations for Dracula, which was Vlad Tempest of Transylvania. Obviously, I've drawn from that too because that's Vlad Tempest and Alexandru Dragoi, the main character of the Pennsylvanian. That's where they share a birthplace from wildly different periods, but they are from the same place as sort of like a reference anyway. Although, and this comes back to the idea that that Dracula is related to Vlad Tempest is somewhat overblown. I don't know, like in the original source material, there's not really as much implication that he's that character, but he is from that region anyway. But I think Bram Stoker was also, like I said, addressing this idea of these strange rich foreigners coming into England and being very inappropriate. Which, yeah, that's there is this thing hanging over the head of, I think, a lot of horror genres of like very dark and evil things that say more about what the author is trying to imply than about real life. And that's, I think that's the key thing to avoid when you're trying to draw attention to fears that are not valid, such as racism and sexism and xenophobia and whatnot. But yeah, that's really the goal of my book, was to try to like examine this character that had been cursed with this insatiable lust for human blood, and what he'd need to do, especially on the deep internal belief of Alexandru, which is that he is, because he is infected with this thing, he is going to hell, that he is eternally damned just for of having this thing done to him. And in every minute he is not dead is a is one of the small portion of time he will not have to spend in damnation. And with these things influencing his character, what does he end up doing? And he ends up doing some very villainous things, which eventually you go past the point where they're uh, like sympathetic.
I think generally that brings me back to like one of my initial questions here on what you're saying about Alexander and in terms of what like you thought like the mythos was generally pushing towards. So maybe I should probably just ask this question. How do you think that vampires have become like one of the most common tropes for like an anti-hero character? And like, what do you think in the mythos makes them kind of like a redeemable anti-hero for you?
Um, I mean, it's kind of like some that my book kind of like intrinsically rejects, is the idea that like a vampire can be an anti-hero, even though, yeah, but like it's one of these things where like there is something, it's a way to, on a very base level, it's a way to like give a hero of a story these very like kind of cool looking powers with some limitations in them, while giving him this thing to struggle against, which some people think is edgy. Um Part of like what um I spend a lot of time in the book kind of rejecting that idea that like vampires are something to play with in that sort of way, just because like it's I think if you start saying that like the once you start admit to the idea that like the thirst can be resisted, um at very least by the average, like if you set up this idea that the thirst of the vampire for blood can be resisted, you're starting to like take away from the thing that makes them terrifying to me in a lot of ways, is that you're taking like a person and making it so that they have to step over other people in order just to keep living. Like I never even my book is very anti-truce between vampires and people. I mean, that's kind of the dangerous thing when you like rate these villainous protagonists like I've tried to, is that like people can look into them as like, oh, that's guy's so cool. It's like the Breaking Bad thing, where like a lot of people like you're not supposed to like be on the character's side. I mean that like the people misinterpreting Breaking Bad don't undermine that Breaking Bad is a good story. But I think it is something you need to keep in mind when writing these villainous protagonists, is that people there are certain people that want to latch on to these fascistic presences in the book, in like a story, and you got to I mean part of this is just like in your personal life, just being like, no, fuck you. If you're a Nazi, you're not on my team. I'm very like very state, like being vocally anti-authoritarian in like your day job. That's I say it.
Kind of like my current relationship with Elon Musk.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, yeah.
I'm currently sitting here on Starlink internet and have been for like the last like year and a half yelling about how much I fucking hate the guy, but like it's become so ingrained into like the only valid like internet option I currently have where I'm living. So like
I'm
with
yeah,
I guess without like jumping on like what Kyle has for internet like currently like
yeah.
which I just can't realistically do. It's about the only option I have right now. So
Yeah, I have but what I
he's
have, like,
he's
there's a lot more upfront cost to it, like, to get it installed, which is what the issue is,
yeah.
with for a lot of people. Um,
Which
but
I think
yeah,
a lot of people out here had the option, but then they ended up turning it down because they wanted to install fiber optics out here. But a lot of the people out at the trailer park that I live in are older, so they
mhm,
don't really care about internet. So I
yeah,
think they ultimately like voted against it. So yeah, Starlink it is. But and I heard like Canada was looking at launching its own like version of Starlink, which will
yeah,
ultimately, I think, if the time comes up, I'll definitely switch over to that rather than
oh, yeah.
supporting Elon Musk in his whole endeavor. But until then, he can take my money for the purpose of convenience at this point.
I mean, that's part of the thing. They kind of this is the thing about like the modern era, where like they're sort of like doing this thing where they sort of insert themselves in every aspect of your life, so that like that's why they say there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. It's like even if you do your best, there's like some things that are going to slip through the cracks unless you're totally living off grid, which is a very difficult and sometimes expensive thing to do depending on where you live.
Well, I think even currently living off grid, the most common option for people to have internet off grid is Starlink because it's satellite powered.
And yeah, it is problematic that like he kind of controls like one of these this increasingly problematic figure like controls a very convenient way to get internet, because he was a probably an investor who's like, oh, I'm not an idiot, I can see why this might catch on, so I'm going to put my money behind this. Yeah, part of the like another issue I have, and I don't want to like be this guy who's like, no, none of you can have any fun with the anti-hero vampires. No, you can't have any fun with like a vampire story that does anything less than portray them as like the source of all evil in the universe, which is the approach I took. I'm not gonna because that would make me like a massive asshole to be like, no, I'm the only one telling vampire stories correctly. Me and Bram Stoker. We're the only ones doing it right. Like, I'm not going to do that. That's a little
That
bit
is
too much of
really
a
weird
step.
to put. I think that also like brings me into like the third question I wrote. Like, well, what is your like top three like vampire lores in your opinion? Like, I
Oh,
I, I just said top three because it's like the like probably like the closest like it's really weird that you brought up the pedestal of like the Mount Rushmore of like vampire lores there. Put yourself alongside Bram Stoker, who like literally invented the genre, but
no, yeah,
I'll take it with a grain
I
of salt.
I don't assume I
So,
am, unless I turn out to be. Maybe I'm just
yeah.
being humble and, like, you all think my book's brilliant, but, I don't I will not myself say that. I'm gonna need, like, a few articles from, like, some other people saying it without my input before I, like, put myself on that thing. Uh, but anyway, yeah, no, anyway, my point is, like, I wanted to go in a very horror route with my vampires, where like they were like these intrinsically evil creatures, and not in the like way that like 70s D&D monsters are intrinsically evil, which is like, oh, they're fueled by dark gods, although he is, um, debatably. Uh, I don't know. I have weird thoughts about the religion of the Pennsylvanian. How does religion work in the Pennsylvanian? Find this in some other blog post, which I will talk about another time. Someone asked me that at a convention or something at some point. I'll bore you with it later. But yeah, I really did want like I wanted to like put a person in a position where their two choices are be hideously evil or throw yourself upon the mercy of God, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is like a really difficult thing to try and separate like the whole vampire mythos away from I think like its origins, which like stem from like heavily Christian like ideology from like the early 1800s, because like that's like kind of the whole entire basis of the story is that
Yeah.
like you sold your soul to the devil for immortality, and in it you've been cursed for all eternity to basically become this immortal monster figure.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said about because I mean those figures that like literally sold their soul to the devil are like part of the lore of the Pennsylvanian, but like the pencil like Alexandru the Pennsylvanian is not himself one of those. He's a figure that has had this thrust upon him and has become like just as bad, and if not just as bad, and perhaps even more dangerous than those people who have like willingly got themselves into this. There's many passages within the book where he laments about this, where like he's like, oh, I could have
Mhm.
been like a normal guy, but I have to do this because this is the only way I don't suffer for all time. And and then he just starts making a bunch of excuses for it, in that like, hey, look, if I wasn't meant to like suck everybody's blood, why did God even let this happen in the first place? Which is the point at which all evil philosophies go completely out of control. Yeah, just when you like asserted put yourself to say like, oh, clearly I'm God's chosen person, otherwise he would simply strike me down. Which is yeah, that's when people go off the rails, and like people have said that. That's what trial by combat is,
I
basically.
think
It's
a
like,
lot of like well, trial by combat, like manifest destiny, like any form of like justified or sorry, not justified, fuck that. Any form of like manifestation of like free will ultimately becomes kind of obsolete when you try and use like religious justifications to back it up, and it is kind of fucking sickening because like all the people that have ever like committed mass atrocities have y- sometimes used religious justifications to do it, and that is gross. And I think anybody who can like has a brain can understand how fucking justifiably gross that is.
I've occasionally read those works of philosophies upon history's greatest monsters, and it is always very disturbing. Of like how that like especially like if like you believe in like this external world in which you will be judged, um it's completely wild to see like someone like old Addie H go around and just be like, "Oh yeah, I am a person who is going to go into heaven." Um, yeah, that's
Please do not try and give fucking nicknames to Adolf fucking Hitler. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Hey, don't try and
no,
humanize him
no.
by like
I mean,
fucking calling him like a Addy age or something like weird shit like that
yeah.
because it's like
Oh yeah, no,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. See what? Yeah, this is kind of
It's like
so.
I'm trying to think of like sorry, I was just gonna switch gears here because I have this thought in my head. There was a I don't know if you ever watched it. I think I watched basically the whole entire Highlander TV series starring Duncan MacLeod, not Connor MacLeod, Duncan MacLeod, the cousin of Connor MacLeod, who was ultimately immortal in the series, and like he switched up like the like immortal genre kind of very decently, where like he uses his immortality to his own advantage without not necessarily like he cheats the system, but he doesn't like break the system. Like he's not like some multi-millionaire like hiding in like plain sight, but he makes a decent living in this series. And the way he does it is he sells antiques, something that he's probably collected throughout his years as an immortal. I think that's in my opinion at least like the most ethical consumption with under like immortality rules, is to be able to like sell your quote unquote expertise. I'm not going to say it's necessarily like a decent expertise because it's like you're still cheating the system, but you're not breaking the system, you know what I'm saying? I'm assuming your character breaks the system of fucking immortality at some point in time.
I mean, in a way, he is the system.
Without yeah, without without, like, trying to fucking, like, give too much, like, shit away so people
Yeah,
can actually buy your
yeah,
books and, like, read
yeah,
it and, like, make their own
yeah.
decisions around the fucking, ethical consumption argument here. The that was very, unethically
Yeah.
consumed.
Oh yeah. But yeah, no, it's one of the I did I do sometimes wonder that like what would, because obviously there is a extent to which Alexandru is like hidden within society, and I wonder. This is part of me just because I'm like I have this. I'm a history like person. Like I'm a history guy who's like put that into like his like professional. He's like semi-professionally qualified, and like I can't imagine being immoral and not like sharing my expertise. Um, and and by the nature of how like the world of the Pennsylvanian works, he's very much kind of not, because he's been placed above. He's like by necessity of how he is born, how he is in the state he is in. He has to place himself above normal people, or else he'd, as we'd say, throw himself upon the mercy of God. But yeah, it's curious thinking about like immortal guys, and just like having this expert knowledge of like the universe and like history, and not necessarily being able to and not needing to or wanting to share it in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously, this is a very different work from Highlander. There, the MacLeods and the Dragois are hidden from society for two very different reasons.
Well, I mean, very two different story arcs. A vampire versus like an immortal in this series are two very, very, very different fucking curses, but one of them a lot worse. So,
Yeah, no, and I don't know. It's one of these. It is sort of a politically charged topic at a certain point, because um really, at the end of the day, isn't the real blood sucking parasite the state? I say, winking at the camera that is plugged in but not turned on. I guess I do have a webcam near me, but uh
also
anyway,
have a webcam near
yeah,
me, right in front of me.
they're not turned on because we don't do. We just have a couple. We just have an hour long phone
Yeah.
call every couple weeks. Um, but yeah, I've very much tried to create this more. I mean, it's a little better now, but like for a long time, especially when I started writing the book, there had not been like a proper evil vampire story for a long time. Cuz yeah, we had just cuz like when I wrote this, like Twilight was over, but it was still like this massive presence. But like the big vampire features of the last 20 years were like Twilight and Blade, and like 20 Days of Night. 30 Days of Night would be the other big one. Yeah, 30 Days of Night is a lot more. I do like 30 Days of Night. I do yeah, that is
I
definitely
guess
more of the things.
Underworld.
Oh yeah, Underworld, but that's also, I purposely didn't imply. Yeah. Yeah, I got told my friend Andrea just said, "Hey, maybe you should put werewolves in it. That seems to be like the popular thing." And I was like, "Nah, I'm just doing this. I want to stick with one monsters. Also, I don't have thoughts on werewolves as much. Like I said, I think the seminal works on werewolf stuff have been made, where I don't necessarily think that's the case for for vampires. Which, again, I'm trying. Let someone else say it before we like assume I'm making a seminal work on the vampire. And to an extent, I don't know how much of this is really original. I think I've done it in like a mostly unique way, but yeah, but yeah, I've just but again, it's a lot better now. We have like Nosferatu, like we had the new Nosferatu, we had Sinners, where like vampires were like pure evil, and I'm very happy with where the genre is right now. Um, it would have been maybe nice if I had put this out a couple years ago when people were a little bit more hungry for good vampire stuff, but I don't know. I mean, on the other hand, maybe because there's been good vampire stuff, people will be more hungry for the genre. We'll see. I'm just here to try my best. I made a novel, and I think I did a good job with it, and I'm hoping everyone enjoys it when they get a hold of reading it. You did ask a while ago about my favorite lore bits. Um, yeah, my favorite lore bits are just like, I like the sort of like idea that there's like these old school uh I like my vampires a little bit more plaguey. I like I very much do support this idea that like they're like this old like semi incomprehensible thing that like leaves destruction in its wake. I don't really enjoy the scientification of vampires we see in modern age. It's why my vampires can't be killed by like a UV lamp. Like I just think that's sort of lame. Like in my opinion,
Yeah.
sunlight kills vampires because God hates vampires, and they're just not allowed to be out in the sun. But which I just think there's a lot more. I just think that's a more interesting idea. And I mean, if you start doing that, you start getting into these weird edge cases where, like, oh, well, technically, moonlight is reflected sunlight. And I'm like, yeah, but that's lame. If like they can literally never go outside, um, or if they like can't.
Yeah.
And I guess I did write a little bit of a few blog posts on I did write a blog post on my website, Brokenshire Books at WordPress dot WordPress at dot com. Brokenshire Books. What's the web address? It's at the back of my book, which I have sadly sitting here. My website, brokenshirebooks.wordpress.com. I did write a thing about like the vampire remedies or weaknesses I don't use. And the weird one is that like despite the fact I think vampires are very magical, I think that like they're I did I did exclude some very common magical weaknesses. I don't really use the idea that like vampires can't go into churches and crosses and whatnot. Just because like I mean the reason for that is because like if Alexandru can't go into a church, or if like every priest has like the ability to make like holy water that can kill him, he's just gonna burn down those churches and kill all the priests. Like it's just gonna and like that's just like if he's doing that, you just can't have a realistic world. Like that's a very different thing if like vampires have to constantly be at war with the Vatican or whatever. Yeah, because yeah, that's very much my thing. Is like is Alexandru with, and that's the same with like walking into play like trespassing. Like vampires not sinners did it to very good effect. I really did like how sinners did it. Alexandru would have just burnt that building to the down with all those people in it. Like that's just how he operates. Like there's yeah no he would like Alexandru's very much like yeah no I'll just blow up the building with you in it. I'm not I'm just gonna I'm a very professional guy. I'm not gonna fuck around. I'm just gonna kill people in the most efficient way. I'll burn down the house with you in it, and I'll use like my hypnotic patterns to just like send the fire department on their way, so that like the fire doesn't get put out. Yeah, no, he's like these things just wouldn't hold him back in a way that is satisfying. That aren't as satisfying, or in the case of the Catholic Church thing, it was like, yeah, he'd just destroy all of them. And I don't know, maybe the Catholics end up like the Catholic Church ends up losing, winning that fight, but it's not going to be pretty. Which is basically the premise of the novel. Is just like, no, you don't fuck with this guy. Like, it's not going to be pretty. He's very much a very terrifying figure. I did also one of the things I did keep that's kind of, sort of a niche one is like okay, so like in the original Dracula, when like Dracula's turning like Lucy, I think is her name was, she's bedridden for several days. And that's sort of and that's always been my sort of justification of just like, why don't we make like 50 million vampires? It's like it's a whole thing. The person's like you're killing them and bringing them back to life. Like that's what's happening. And you have to visit them a certain amount of times in order to like like up the vampirism stuff, germs. I could also talk about self-publishing for a bit because I did self-publish this, and maybe I just talk for a minute about why I did that. So we live in interesting times. Like I said, there is something very topical about there is something that feels sort of topical about addressing like these immortal blood-sucking vampires who are a drain on our society but are seemingly just completely invincible, and like the people that could do it, do something about it, will do nothing. The reason I self-published, I didn't actually submit this to any publishers, and part of the reason I did that, I came to the idea of doing that, is just that like as I was getting like later in the process, AI was really starting to take off. And people, and I don't want to disparage like those proud few publishers that are like still keeping up the good fight. Um our friend Victoria is doing quite well with her traditionally published novel. I got another friend who's going to be traditionally published in the next year or so. But it just feels like, I mean, first of all, like it's not the 1990s anymore. We have at our disposal in this modern age a way better access to certain tools that make public that like self-publishing a novel a lot easier than it would have been when I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, it very much would have been like a impossible thing to like self-publish a novel. The tools to do it are just far superior in the modern day. And I felt like up to the task of doing it. Where if I were doing this in like the 2000 or in the 70s or something, I would not have felt a chance. But like with the AI trend coming, I'm not interested with competing with a machine that's going to do a worse job, and like money's drying up for this sort of stuff nowadays. Like there's a lot of very arrogant people that think they're going to replace all the artists with machines because they think that any old thing can do the job, and it can't. People are saying like, okay, well, what if an AI creates the next great piece of literature? And my answer to that is just like, that'll have like, we don't throw out all of human authorship before that, like ever, first of all, because art is for everybody. It is one of the primordial forms of human expression, and people are drying up resources for that human expression by putting money into these AI things because some big wig doesn't want to deal with an author. Those people that like that will ultimately fail, because though if those guys had what was in them to make a great piece of literature, they'd be doing it themselves. We're in this era where people are trying to cut away from our ability to make our, it's like put our work out there. And if a lot of companies are, and this is part of it too, like I want to write a book. I don't want to impress some producer in order just for people to see my book. I want people to see my book,
Fair
and
enough.
yeah, I that is more important to me than than the marketing budget that a traditional publishing house is going to be giving me, because that is the only thing they are offering me. Like that is all I get from them, is just like a fancy marketing budget. Most of it's like they be flying me out to places or whatever if I am indeed up to that standard, which I I hope I would think I hope I am. Like in my soul, I think I'm good enough. But ultimately, I want to share things with people. Don't I want to do that? And I fortunately have enough personal funds where I can like finance this journey myself. Others are not so fortunate, and those people that aren't so fortunate are going to see a lot more struggles going forward.
I think we never really talked about like really decent like traditional um self-published like novels at this point in time, because there's been a couple in the last year.
Oh yeah.
Um most notably Silo,
Hmm.
that came out, on, I wanna say Amazon, no, Apple TV.
Oh yeah.
That started from a published novel, and then it has, just been picked up, I think, for a second or third season.
Hmm.
So others that I can think of are like
Great art is
weird,
great.
small,
Yeah. Yeah,
or
great art
really
is
big.
great. The people that will find it will find it. I'm gonna do my best to try to like do justice by my novel and like get it to the people that will hopefully like it. And I mean, if I thought I could get if I reasonably thought I could get access to like movie money, I would just be doing that. I don't. I don't know someone who's gonna give me like this. I'm waving it around. This cost like to put this to screen is going to be millions of dollars just as it is.
Yeah,
And I don't believe other artists are held to this standard cuz like I think a lot of authors are kind of going through about as much rigmarole to get into like the public's to get like people to notice their work as like a movie guy for a lot less benefit. At least when you're going through all the trouble to get like a movie produced, that's because you need people to give you like $2 million, like millions of dollars. Movies are hideously expensive. We've talked about this before. And I generally don't write the sort of thing that's going to be cheap to produce. I have a few of those in me, probably. They're like, yeah, this is probably a cheap movie script, and that's probably going to happen eventually. And maybe that, like, I'll write like a like a just a romantic comedy for 40-year-old women or something, and it'll I think it I'm serious, by the way. I think I'll do like I think I have a decent one of those in me. But it's just like artists like it's only so like it's only like artists and filmmakers who go through this thing where they feel they have to go to some big executive guy to show their work to the world. And I'm kind of over the idea of maybe it's just I'm too much of a communist for this, but I'm just kind of over the idea of impressing a producer just so people can read my book. Just wanted
fair
to put
enough.
it out myself. There's just so many horror story like I again, our friend Victoria, she's the opposite point of this. She's doing really well with her traditionally published novel. Um and I wish nothing but success for every author who's not like writing like uh I don't know, Turner Diaries #2 or whatever. But they're like I wish the best for almost all authors. But it's just not where I don't have my heart in the idea of pitching the publishers. My soul's not in it. It's and this way like I know I'll do what's best for it. And I don't know that every publishing company is going to be into that. And I'm sure like there are people that are trustworthy out there, but there's tons of people that aren't. Like there's this chance of hitting it big, but there's a chance of like not and of like getting scammed. And that's kind of why I went the thing. I wanted to do the most direct route to making the best novel I could and like putting it out there for people to read. It's a thing that requires a tremendous amount of discipline. And I mean, time will tell if I actually have that. I maybe don't. I've learned a lot of things doing this. My second novel, which I am working on, will come out a little better. I've learned a lot. The process is going to be easier next time, and there will be a next time. Uh, by God, there will be a next time. Um, if the Pennsylvania does super well, there will be a sequel. I don't currently have one outlined or anything, but I could potentially do it if people out there want it enough. But I am working on something else right now. It'll be another novel. That's sort of my message here. And also, like, there's just so many. There's a lot. It's difficult for like a first time author, and there's a lot of people looking to take advantage of little guys like me who are just trying to get their foot in the door. And I don't know, I might get caught. I didn't get caught up by one of those guys. I'm doing this so that I don't. If someone wants to do any sort of business opportunity, they can talk to me. And once it was through my head that I could, I felt confident enough to do this by myself. It was a very easy decision. I didn't make it likely, but it was something true to, that I did for myself, and I'm just so happy it's out in the world. Yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah. Thank you to everyone who listened. Anyone who buys the book, also big thank you. Every little bit helps. It's just a beautiful. It's I'm glad to share it with you. It's I've done my best. I hope everyone likes it. Obviously, I'm waiting on the one guy who's going to hate it. That's just the way of the world. I'm not going to be super mad about it. And like I've told all my relatives, if you just want to buy it, I've told all my relatives, if you just want to buy it just to support me, that's fine. Like I will not begrudge anyone who just wants to give me some clean support. Uh yeah.
Yeah, I
Anyways,
think ultimately that it also kind of harpens back to like this whole entire conversation about like I've had this thought process at least for a couple months, like oh like as two people like who like started a podcast and
mhm,
basically had it independently funded, stuck it out into the ethernet, and like we've never like received a dollar for this. We just
yeah.
do it as like something we both enjoy doing,
Yeah.
and then like I've considered being like, well, why don't we just like even like throw a Patreon together or something, just so that like at least like some of the upfront costs or stuff like that is
Yeah.
like at least been covered, and then I've
Yeah.
never really gone past that, like to the point where I'm like, let's it seems like a lot of work, and I feel like Patreon takes like more than a like their fair share of fucking off the top, and it's like, okay, well,
I mean, I keep this on the air for like $40 a month. It's not a lot of money. It doesn't. Yeah. I just it never, and I don't have like a ton of people listening, so it's like yeah, just talk to like three of my friends and like finance my random podcast. Yeah, it's just like, I
yeah,
mean,
I think for the
yeah,
most part, like my parents would be like here's your dollar a month Patreon
yeah,
like budget, or but like Victoria and like Tyler would be like, here's like, $5 a month. We're never gonna like redeem it, or like I think we between like our family members or like friends, they
yeah,
would probably just be like, here you go. But
maybe,
I've
yeah.
never really
It
even thought of it.
and it feels weird at a certain point because like this is all kind of optional. Like, I mean, you could tell me to pound, we could tell each other to pound sand at any time we wanted, but we genuinely enjoy making the show usually.
I
Yeah.
mean, besides like I guess the room and I guess the hostage service, like when we initially started the podcast, for the most part, we I wouldn't say had what we needed, but we had enough to get off the ground, and then like we've kind of like increased quality to the point that it's like at least something better than like two people sitting around a kitchen table with like the cheapest podcasting mic that they can find. And I feel like that's what a lot of podcasts like start out as, and then they kind of sell their soul along the way to be able to uh, hit a mold, or like hit a advertisement friendly like sector. And I don't think I would give that up to be like mainstream successful for
Yeah. It's
like
like,
2 weeks or
whatever.
whatever, like
Yeah. I mean, I might still eventually do like some sort of reaction content or something, but I don't know. It's just like, I have so much work. I always put too much on my plate. And like
Isn't that what like
people notice this about me,
isn't
like, oh shit, Kyle, you're doing a lot of stuff actually when you really break it down.
yeah, and I think that that also kind of like what like boils down to like the difference between like a hobby podcast and
Yeah,
like a mainstream podcast is we kind of just like we set our own times to be able to
yeah.
like last time I think we scheduled a release was a while back ago and
Oh
like
fuck,
we've been
barely.
kind of hit or miss for the last little bit.
We were bare. We barely
Like
made it into season two, or barely made it out of season two with like a regular schedule. It's
yeah. Or like yeah, like even like a fucking distinguishable plan at this point in time because like it's kind of just like, hey, do we want to do a movie? And you go yes or no. Like we don't have a list. We don't have a fucking like.
yeah.
We
I
kind of generally have a list for poly sci-fi because that's kind of like newer. But eventually, I feel like it's
yeah,
going to kind of start hitting the point that uh, Kyle and Cody's called Cinema Cast like started, and it's gonna like just be like, hey, here's the topic.
yeah,
Do you want to do this topic? Yes or no, and then it's gonna be done, right? So
yeah. And like the podcast of the living zombie, it's sort of like at this point that's sort of turned into like a research episode. Like that's a research project basically. Like I'm doing like I've now visually committed to like do like watching all these zombie movies so that I could so that I can eventually write a book on the history of the Hollywood zombie. And that's just sort of where I'm at with that. So that's gonna be like a thing. That's not the next project. That's like the project after this next one. But yeah. Okay, so there's 5 minutes left in the room. So yeah, thank you so much
okay,
everybody. Yeah, like the like, comment, subscribe, buy my book. Buy my book. Buy my book. Um find
uh, you
yeah,
could probably link that
yeah,
when you go live for
it'll be in there.
the episode, along with
Yeah,
your website.
yeah. Um yeah, it's all out there. The links will be in the description. I did a couple Facebook posts earlier with like the cover reveal on it on like our podcast Facebooks just so some of the listeners could see it. I have not looked at any day one sales numbers. It frankly makes me all very nervous and I'm just sort of hoping that some people like the book. Anyway, goodbye everybody. Thanks for listening. We're out of here.